Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would move that House File 2709 be referred to the Committee on Ways and Means.
That is the motion to your bill. Oh, and you have a DE amendment, is that right?
Mr.
Chairman?
Chair, I would move the DE 6 amendment.
I'm sorry, which amendment are you moving, Chairman Yarny?
Mr. Chair, I would move the DE 6 amendment.
The DE6. Does everyone have a copy of the DE6? Okay, all in favor to get the bill in the shape the author so desires. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed say no. Motion passes to your bill as amended. Chairman Yarny.
Mr. Chair, I'll try to be as concise as possible. We have an important ability to increase police professional standards based on what this legislature has identified, quite frankly, in a bipartisan manner. That is most important to them relative to the kind of things we expect our peace officers to receive training in. Within the last biennium, we took actually 2 bienniums, we took special steps to identify implicit bias, mental health, de-escalation, knowledge, and training opportunities for Minnesota's licensed police officers in response to a number of tragic incidences that all of us were receiving from constituents. Mr. Chair and members, let me just state right off the bat, this bill still needs some work, and so I'm going to be very transparent about being upfront about that, and I want to I'll identify where that is. But quite frankly, given the importance of this legislation, given the opportunities before us, and frankly, given the nearing, committee deadlines, it's important that we hear these provisions here today in Judiciary. I will continue to hear this bill in the Public Safety, Criminal Justice Reform Committee and work with members and interested constituents. House File 2709 has data collection reporting provisions that are related, as I said, to the legislative direction that a portion of the mandated training for peace officers licensed through the Pulse Board be provided training in implicit bias, de-escalation, and mental health. That $12 million biennial appropriation for that training component of our overall training mandates is set to sunset after the next biennium. We'll talk about that in the subsequent committee. But the idea here, members, is to have this bill tie ongoing funding to participation by our CLEOs in a data collection process that will measure the effectiveness of the training that we're spending a lot of money in. The bill then does that through data collection identified in 4 broad areas. Traffic citations, where we're looking for a designation of ethnicity. Peace officer discipline findings, where we're focused really only on major discipline issues, not small minor discipline infractions. Use of force data that the BCA Bureau of Criminal Apprehension already requires, and then participation in the unfolding NIBRS reporting system. NIBRS is the National Incident-Based Reporting System that will retire the summary reporting system, which has stood as our uniform crime reporting framework in our nation for decades. NIBRS will make it, the intent is to make NIBRS the only nationwide format for crime statistics in the U.S. It allows policymakers and law enforcement and communities to go much deeper in terms of that data for use in enhancing our public safety efforts. It does that by providing circumstances and context for crimes. It's going to be a useful statistic for promoting constructive discussion going forward in this legislature and legislatures across the nation. So with that, Mr. Chair, there's data collection reporting provisions throughout the bill, Section 1, which speaks to traffic citations, Section 2, which speaks to the discipline findings, Section 4, which speaks to the use of force data that the BCA already requires, and then Section 3, where we make an appropriation for a research entity to work with the Post Board to develop common measures based on the data, provide data-based information for enhancing CLIO decision-making, and frankly, to make sure that when we're looking at this data, we're able to compare apples to apples. As I said when I started, there are areas that I want to continue working on. It would be my hope to be able to do that beyond after this committee, but then also if the chair is open and the committee is interested to bring that back in the form of language as this committee then marks up as omnibus, so that everyone is fully informed of what our changes to data collection and reporting would be. The 4 areas that I intend to work on is in Section 1. We didn't quite draft this right. It's not our intent to have ethnicity marked on a traffic ticket. It's our intent to have the perception of the officers stop and making that citation be reported. We want to make sure that we're addressing concerns that Minnesota Police Officers Association has raised relative to the information about name and badge number of a peace officer who's party to the discipline reporting. We think there are ways in which we can anonymize that. Quite frankly, that information is public data as it exists at the local, at the CLIO, but they have some concerns about when we pull it together into at the Post Board, even though we're calling for summary data reporting to the public based on that information. There's a question about where the database will be housed. I'm having conversations with the BCA about that. The bill as it's structured implies that it'll sit at Post Board. I think that would be ideal, but frankly, Post Board has some severe limitations. They're using paper for collecting data and not digital at this point. And so one of the other possibilities is to have the data reside with the research entity for a period of time. And the research entity we're interested in, quite frankly, is the Wilder Foundation, who I have here, can speak quickly about that. Very experienced in holding data for a number of state mandated projects, totally following our confidentiality and privacy statutes. And then finally, there's some issues in working with the BCA relative to the level of NIBRS data reporting when it comes to the level B category of offenses. And so they're still working out whether or not we can include those category Bs within this data collection scheme. So with that, Mr. Chair, I'll stop and perhaps allow, with your permission, Mr. Matisich to speak briefly about the Wilder Foundation, and this will be to the issue of the data collection and construct and issues about confidentiality and privacy as well.
Thank you, Chair Mariani. Welcome to the committee. Please introduce yourself for the record and begin your testimony.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. I am Paul Matisich, the Executive Director of Wilder Research, which is part of the Wilder Foundation. Wilder Research is a nonprofit, nonpartisan research organization, and we appreciate that many of the legislators here in Minnesota from both parties and their staff make use of the resources that we provide. I'll just speak briefly to the data collection and mechanical and confidentiality issues that Representative Mariani mentioned. We have projects such as Minnesota Compass, which is a website providing social indicators. We have carried out projects which require a high degree of confidentiality of information. In this particular case, what we would propose to do would be to develop a systematic, reliable, confidential compilation of the data in the areas that Representative Mariani listed. And in the tip of the iceberg, create two main functions, two things. One would be public-facing aggregate information that could be used to see trends in these different areas, something that any jurisdiction could use, legislators could use, other policymakers, decision makers, to see what the overall trends are with respect to these issues. The second part of it would be information that would only be available to particular jurisdictions, police departments, that they could use for their own development, training, monitoring over time, improvement of their services. Our goal in all this is to improve relationships between law enforcement and community organizations, improve trust, improve understanding of the context in which law enforcement is occurring, what drives the outcomes of that particular context, of those contexts, and to be sure that we incorporate all the stakeholders who are relevant for deciding about this, how it should be measured into the process. So the last thing I would say is that as we would develop any form of a database, we would begin with a process in which a multi-partisan, multi-stakeholder group comes together. They identify what would be valid, reliable, credible indicators speaking to the topics that Representative Mariani mentioned, and then we would develop a scientifically credible way to collect, protect, and secure and report those indicators. Again, at an aggregate level, to anyone who's interested, and then at a more detailed level to particular departments who already would have the right to access that information. We've done this with the Minnesota Student Survey. We did this when we developed a homeless management information system for the state of Minnesota, which accessed data from homeless service providers throughout the state. In all these cases, it's highly confidential data, it's protected health information, and it's something that can be securely, systematically compiled and used for decision-making to improve law enforcement, to improve community relations, to improve our communities. So that's enough to say about it. I'll conclude.
Thank you. Any other
Mr. Chair, I would
Chair
only
Mariani.
add very quickly that we've been working on language pretty furiously for the past several weeks with a number of important stakeholders. I'm not saying that they're supportive, but I'm letting folks know that there has been a pretty rigorous process of interaction with the BCA, with the Pulse Board, with our chiefs, with our sheriffs, with the MPOA, and with our advocates, particularly in the mental health advocate community and our sexual assault survivor community as well.
Thank you. We have, testifiers, Mr. Hutton and Mr. Gottschalk. Please come forward. You can keep it, if you can keep it to within 2 minutes, thank you.
Mr. Chair,
Oh, Chair Johnson?
since this isn't basically a whole new bill, I'd like to have testimony go longer than just 2 minutes from this testifier, because this is a lot of information we need to cover.
Yeah, this is all going to be covered in public safety. The corpus of all this will be before Chair Mariani's committee. Go ahead, Mr. Hutton.
Good morning, Mr. Chair. It's still morning. And committee members, my name is Bill Hutton. I'm the Executive Director of the Minnesota Sheriff's Association, representing the 87 elected county sheriffs in Minnesota. I'm here to testify regarding, for the sheriffs, regarding House File 2709. First, we'd like to thank Chair Mariani for the conversation regarding this bill. There has been a very good exchange of ideas and information on the items within the bill, and we do appreciate the continued conversation. We've identified 5 pieces to this bill. The NIBRS compliant requirement. The Minnesota Sheriff's Association understands that law enforcement agencies are required to be compliant by 2021 through the federal government and within this bill. Minnesota law enforcement continue to work with their records management system vendors to make this a reality, but nothing is ever easy with IT projects. As we are all aware, they typically are not delivered on time, without issue, or within budget. This, meaning the changing to NIBRS, is an expensive project for the counties. Use of force reporting through the BCA, this is currently ongoing. We do know that more work needs to be done and completed within law enforcement by way of educating on the reporting process. We also know that this reporting is relatively new. Post-annual data reporting, more review of this is needed. We do understand the need for a clearer statewide picture. Currently, law enforcement reports summary data to post of officer complaints on an annual basis. The reported data is not specific to an individual licensed peace officer or any specific complaint. The proposed bill requires that post publish summary data annually. Our suggestion is to let's agree on what data points are needed and report that information. Traffic citation ethnicity. The MSA does not support guessing on anyone's ethnicity. Guessing does not give anyone accurate or even good data. It potentially can place the officers in a bad situation as well. And fifthly, the peace officer training assistance. The Minnesota Sheriff's Association appreciates the monies that have been appropriated to the mandated training, but we continue to express concern that the monies have a sunset date. This bill adds to those potential mandates and has only delayed the sunset date. Again, thank you for the opportunity to address this bill, and we look forward to the continued conversation.
Thank you, Mr. Hutton. Mr. Gottschalk? Welcome to the committee. Please introduce yourself for the record and begin your testimony.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members. For the record, my name is Matt Gottschalk, and I'm the Chief of Police in the City of Corcoran. I'm testifying today on behalf of the Minnesota Chiefs of Police Association, and we thank Chair Mariani for bringing this proposal forward and engaging with our association on the front end, just working through some of the language. And we look forward to working with the legislature as this proposal goes forward, but we have some questions and concerns about the proposal as it's currently drafted. There are some good points in this bill, and we support working towards things like getting our agencies NIBRS compliant, but there are some hurdles, as Sheriff Hutton mentioned. The bill currently draws some very isolated statistics and at the same time puts an end date on the funding for law enforcement's robust training requirements relating to diversity and cultural differences, conflict management, mediation, crisis intervention, and some mental illness crisis. It goes on to add a host of other unfunded reporting mandates and contains some significant language that still needs more consideration. While the intent to gather ethnicity data on uniform traffic ticket is noble and would apply to actual tickets, it puts officers in a terrible position to take an educated guess as to an individual's race or ethnicity. And this has potential results of adding another barrier to our positive community interactions. We also feel the discipline data report language needs some work. The current bill language sends full complaint data to the post, and we feel summary or aggregate data submitted to post board would be more appropriate. Also, most complaints actually come from within the law enforcement agencies in holding officers accountable. The bill as drafted doesn't even allow agencies to indicate that a complaint came from within the agency to show that our officers and agencies take discipline seriously. It simply says a complaint came from either a member of the public or other sources, and the other source most times is our agencies. Furthermore, while this data would be classified as private data, our association will remain concerned about the security of that type of sensitive personnel data being housed in a database run by a community-based research organization, which could be prevented by simply reporting aggregate data to the post board. Lastly, I want to reiterate that while this committee is primarily concerned with data provisions of the bill, the training reimbursement is tied to compliance within the bill. The message that we are sending to our state and to law enforcement by continuing to sunset this important training funding is disappointing. When the Law Enforcement Coalition came forward with the training proposal a few years ago, we knew the need for this training and that it needed to be a long-term investment, and sunsetting this funding is not something that we can support. Thank you.
Thank you. Questions from members? Chair Scott.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And Representative Mariani, I appreciate your openness to make changes in this bill as it goes along, and particularly in relation to data, especially if it's going to be housed at a third party. There are some parameters that I think you'd want to put around that data. I think you need to determine, first of all, how long the data is going to be kept. And then also kind of some of the things that we've been putting in anytime there's a new database or whatever is role-based access and what else? Audit trails, those sorts of things should be built in so that we know who's been accessing the data. And I see the representative from the Wilder Foundation has come up, and perhaps he can speak to those things. But those are just some of the parameters that we've been putting in surrounding new databases that are created. Thank you.
Thank you. Representative Lucero.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And my first question here, either to the bill author or maybe to research, would be when looking at line 1.12, it says the new language is must identify the complainant's ethnicity. But then when I look at the handout that we were given regarding the Wilder Foundation, in the first paragraph, there's a footnote to Minnesota Public Radio article in regards to Minneapolis that they were tracking race. So my first question is, can we confirm the difference between race and ethnicity? And then what is the definition of ethnicity as it is in the bill language?
Chair Mariani, did you want to take that, or? Research.
Mr. Chair and members and Representative Lucero, we've struggled a bit with this because we have different jurisdictions that are using different descriptors based on what we're interested in. And so the court is using ethnicity descriptors. NIBRS, I believe, uses race descriptors. What I'm learning as I interact with the BCA is that the race descriptors in NIBRS are limited relative to the court's use of ethnicity. So Latinos, for instance, are going to be lost in the NIBRS reporting at the highest level, where that'll be evident in the court approach. So quite frankly, this is one of the areas that I want to continue to work on, to settle on. But my intent, quite frankly, is to have as inclusive as possible a descriptive framework, because that's what it's going to take for us to be to get to the ultimate intent behind this legislation, which is to provide a data-based framework and analysis of that framework to enhance the practices of our law enforcement community.
Representative Lucero.
And Mr. Chair, to you then, did I understand you correctly that this is going to be going to public safety?
Yes.
Okay, I'll save the rest of my questions for that committee. Thank you.
Thank you. Representative Grossel.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and to the author as well, in reference to the ethnicity or the race that they want to keep track of. Every time I see that, it just makes me cringe, in all honesty. It makes me cringe because the Commissioner of Public Safety, when he was in front of our committee in public safety, flat out said that we are to execute our duties in an unbiased manner. That is what law enforcement's job is. That's the way I do things. That's the way every officer that I've ever known does things. And when we start keeping track of ethnicity and things, it makes me think that are we wanting to start a racial profile data bank someplace? When I see those kind of things, I don't like it, because I don't want to put our officers in that position. Can you say something to that, or is there a way that that you can take and get rid of that? Because
Mr.
Mariani.
Chair and Representative Grasso, we'll have a longer debate in the next committee, and it should be a welcome debate. The commissioner also said when it was before us that that racial bias is a problem. It's a reality. In society, it's a reality that impacts law enforcement. The current minority party in the House, when they were in the majority, understood this, and so former Chair Cornish was part of, the one of the architects in directing the training dollars to be able to address implicit bias. And the question then becomes, how do you address implicit bias if you're not collecting data about that bias? I think the issue, and again, I want to be very transparent, the issue relative to Section 1 in this bill is that I think what I've done with this language is place that identification in the traffic citation itself. That's not my intent. And so, so I'm putting it on the record that, my intent is we will have to find another way to be able to have a checkoff, for the citing officer to be able to register their observation that's independent of the traffic citation itself. I think at that point, then the issue that you're raising becomes, compounded. If you're getting cited and the citation says, basically, I'm citing you because you're black, that's not what the intent is. And so we'll fix that for sure.
Mr. Chair. Representative Grasso.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Mr. Chair, for looking closer at that, and I'm wondering, because of what the commissioner said, the racial bias in society, I hear a lot of things coming forward. We need to make our cops better. We need to make our cops better. I was one, and I've always advocated, we need to train hard, we need to do it right. We need to be the best officers that we can be on the street because we're representing everybody. And our officers are represented by every race, creed, color, gender. I mean, we're all out there, and we're all out there trying to do the best that we can to support our communities. You and I have had conversations offline just on where we come from, how we were brought up, and the things that we see, the direction that we see society going from time to time it's not a good direction. So I take a step back to ask, is there anything being done to monitor the trends of the general population, the general public, to improve the communities, to improve the community's outlook or their approach to law enforcement officers? If we're only asking the officers to step up, but we're not asking the community to take a hold of your young people, this is how we need to do things. If we want everybody to work together, that's my goal. That's always been my goal as a peace officer, to make sure that I'm a representative of them, to build relationships with the community. But you and I both know that if the community is not building relationships to build bridges to improve relations with law enforcement, we can train until we're blue in the face and it's not going to amount to a hill of beans.
We've got two more people on the list. Members, keep in mind that this committee shares 9 members with public safety, and the basic policy of this bill is going to be heavily decided in public safety. We're here on the data practices component. Representative Mueller.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And with that, I'll keep my comments short, but just to kind of address what Representative Grassel just said, too. So I think everybody on the committee knows that I'm a prosecutor. I work at Hennepin County. And I took implicit bias training as part of my job there, and it was life-changing for me and for some of my colleagues. And so, but I guess my question for you, Chair Mariani, is just because I'm new here, and I don't know how the original training dollars came about, and I think you've mentioned that, but I just want to be clear that those initial funds in part were to provide implicit bias training. Am I understanding that correctly?
Chair Mariani.
Mr. Chair and Representative Mueller, yes, along with de-escalation and skill enhancement in dealing with mental illness, as well. And by the way, members, we'll talk about this in the other committee, but the sunset was created at that point. This bill actually extends the sunset out a bit. There's still a sunset, but we're not creating the sunset. I know that's outside the scope of this committee, but yes, Representative Mueller, that's correct.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Representative Mueller.
And I would just say I look forward to a broader discussion of this in the Public Safety Committee, and perhaps we can talk a little bit more about implicit bias too, but it does apply to all people. All people have implicit bias, no matter what race or color you are. So thank you.
Indeed.
Representative Johnson.
Chair Lesh, Representative Mariani, my comments were partially on what we've been talking about, the officer trying to guess which the ethnicity. I can try to guess what Representative Lesh's ethnicity is.
You'd be wrong.
I have a good idea because of the items he's brought in that he's probably some Irish in him.
Stubborn.
But everybody has ethnicity. I'm Swedish and English. I have Representative Lusaro's. I have no idea what he is. And by some of the suits, we don't know either. But trying to get ethnicity is not the way to go about this. Law enforcement officers do the stops and the citations on probable cause. They have to have probable cause in order to make a stop or make an arrest. Without probable cause, their arrest is not good. And if they get a number of citations or convictions thrown out because of lack of probable cause, they're generally shortly done being an officer. So the officer is very careful and makes sure they have proper probable cause before they issue a citation or make an arrest. Now, on the back, there's a lot of issues with data privacy on this disciplinary report. And I'm hoping Post Board comes up in a little bit to talk about this as well. There's a lot of departments, about 40% of our departments have 5, 6, 7 officers completely. And as the gentleman from the Wilder Institute said, they can get the data down to the department. You have a 3-man department, and all of a sudden an officer is disciplined. They don't know, and that's a lot of that disciplinary is for, a lot of times, is for violations of policy. Nothing to do with the public, but a policy issue. That information, all of a sudden somebody sees, oh, he's not on vacation, he's at home, he's not working. A month later, they call Post Board to get the information on that department, a 3-man department. It's supposed to be confidential. Personnel policies are confidential. When an officer moves on to a different department, he signs the release so that department doing the background check can actually look into his personnel policy. This is very dangerous and can be very damaging to law enforcement and the public themselves.
Yeah.
I think we really need to take a closer look at protecting the data, how we disseminate it, what gets disseminated, and be very careful, because if we don't have our law enforcement, we don't have our liberties.
Mr. Chair.
I think Chair Mariani.
Very, very quickly, Representative Johnson, I think I partially agree. I would point you to, just so you know what the intent is here, if you look on line 3.22, it says that the data received in subdivision 1 is private data on individuals. It does go on to say that that doesn't restrict the publication of summary data. If you switch over to then line 4.1, in subdivision 6, it talks about the board publishing a summary of data, and then it goes on to say that the summary shall exclude peace officers' names and license numbers. So the idea is not to have that be the outward public face. The original intent is to have as much real data as possible so that internally we can have the kind of data-driven reflection and processes in order to continue to produce better decision-making on the part of law enforcement. The irony is, members, that at the CLEO level, this data is actually public. And so we're actually backing off when it comes to when we're pulling it together into a big database. It is the section I will continue to work with, as I mentioned earlier, but Mr. Matisich has, I think, a quick point he wants to make as well.
Just quickly, so Representative Mariani took care of the part of your question, I think, about individual data, which would not be revealed to anyone who wouldn't have a right to it. The other part of your question, which is a very important point, is that even summary data can reveal things you don't want revealed if it's about groups that are too small.
Right.
And so in any project like this, just as the Census Bureau does, or any other research organization, there would be minimums established as to the smallest units that could be described. And so a 3-person department, summary data wouldn't be presented for that. There'd be some kind of a cutoff. And that would be standard procedure to protect confidentiality and eliminate the situations you're describing.
Thank you. Chair Mariani's motion is that this be re-referred to Ways and Means. All in favor, as amended, we amended it, right?
Yes.
As amended. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, say no.
No,
Motion passes.